Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Weekly Gains Podcast. My name is Clark Gaines, and I want to thank you so much for joining me on episode number 3. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the power of saying no. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Oh man, I am terrible at that. And that's okay, because I am too. And that's something that I've been actively working on the past couple of years. And one thing I could say is this. When you do say no to things that don't align with your values and your goals, it's a very freeing and liberating thing. I think we struggle to say no a lot of times to people because we don't want to let them down. We don't want them to feel rejected or resent us. So we end up saying yes to everything. But the problem is, the more times we say yes to all this stuff, it starts to chip away at our sanity and our peace. It starts to hurt and affect our family even sometimes. So saying no is not about hurting people. It's about protecting who you are and what's important to you. So stick around. We're going to talk more about that in just a second. But I do want to take a quick look back at last week because last week the episode was about memento mori. Remember, you must die. Hopefully you guys remembered that. And a lot of you participated in the challenge. I got some Instagram DMs. I got some texts. There were some people on Facebook in our exclusive group called Gaining Ground, and they shared some photos with me, right? And it was really cool to see, everybody's perspective walking through a graveyard. That's a really weird way to start this podcast, I understand, but thank you to all who participated and completed that challenge last week. I hope that it gave you just a slight change in perspective on life and death. I also completed the challenge. I went to not one, not two, 3 different graveyards. That's kind of weird, but they were very convenient to go to, all 3 of them. One was in Livonia. I walk by it every day, nearly, when I go on a walk. And then one was in Royston, and then the other was in Athens, right beside Sanford Stadium. Also, shout out to Will Snipes. You went to that one as well. But as I went through each of these graveyards, and I was looking through the headstones and whatnot, I got to thinking about the people in these caskets. And I started kind of thinking, what would these people say if they could just, if they could have one more hour just to kind of talk? What would they be saying? And I got to thinking, they would definitely not be saying, oh man, I wish I'd have scrolled more on TikTok. Oh man, I wish I would have participated more in Facebook arguments, right? They're not saying those things. And so that thought kind of convicted me because I think I waste a lot of time on these social media outlets. And so now more than ever, I understand that not everything deserves my time. And that's why learning to say no matters so much. The first time I really learned to say no was back in 2023. It's kind of at a crossroads in my business. Up to that point, I had done a lot of wedding videography. You go to the wedding venue, you show up, you walk inside, take the camera out, and go find the bride. And then you enter a room that's full of, perfume and, oh my gosh, hairspray. You'll about knock you out. It's like walking to a Bath and Body Works. It's awful. But you go and you get some shots of that, and then you go find the groom, take some shots of him, getting ready and everything with his groomsmen who are half asleep. And then the ceremony comes, and then the reception and the whole 9. And you capture all that as a wedding videographer. And that's what I was doing. But it got to the point where I was getting really jaded. It was just the same old every stinking Saturday. And I just didn't like it anymore. So what I told myself was in January of 2023, Clark, you are not to take on any more weddings this year. Now I had some booked throughout the year, but I wasn't going to accept any more new weddings. And so a couple months went by. And I get a text from somebody and they say, hey, we'd love for you to come film the wedding. It's going to be in September. It's on a Georgia football bye week, which was really smart. And I remember the commitment I made to myself earlier in the year. And so I told these people, I said, listen, I'd love to, but my priorities have kind of shifted in my business. I'm actually looking to do more business social media content for other people. And so, I'm just shifting focus. And so I'm sorry I won't be able to. And thankfully, they're very understanding. And when I said that, I don't know, it kind of put me at ease. It's like, oh man, that is freeing. That is liberating a little bit. I finally can just turn that down and not feel bad about it. Then a couple months later, I get a call from a guy out in Hawaii. Now, this isn't a stranger or anything. I'd actually met the guy on a trip that Caitlin and I took earlier that year. And this guy was a tour guide. He gave Caitlin and I a tour of Oahu, and we stopped at all these really cool filming locations. We got to see, Kualoa Ranch, where they filmed Jurassic Park and Lost, 50 First Dates, all that fun stuff. So this guy calls me, and it's like summer of 2023, and he says, Clark, I remember you saying you were a videographer. I would love for you to come out to Hawaii and film my tour so that I can then put it on my website and sell it to people and let people view it. Anybody that can't make it to Hawaii. And I said, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. And he said, well, here's the thing. I can really only do it this weekend in September. And I was like, oh man, I can swing that because I said no to the wedding. And so this guy, long story short, he flies Caitlin and I out there. He puts us up in a hotel room, literally covers our entire stay out there. I mean, it's awesome. Flight and everything. And, I do like a day and a half's work with him. And then the other day and a half, Caitlin and I are like going around Hawaii. It's really cool. It's essentially an all expenses paid trip, which is awesome. But my point is that trip never would have happened had I just said, oh yeah, I guess I'll just take on this wedding. I don't really want to. And then I would have had it in contract and I couldn't have really gotten out of it. I could have found another videographer, but that's beside the point. So that was something that really just hit me. And then another thing that I think about when I think about the word no, believe it or not, it's Steve Jobs. If you know who Steve Jobs is, he's the co-founder or was the co-founder of Apple and, got it off the ground and running. And back in the 80s, I think, he was pushed out of Apple. They didn't want him anymore. The board and him, I think, just butted heads too much, and they just kind of forced him out the door. Then in the 90s, he comes back because Apple is bleeding cash, right? They're like $1 billion in the hole. They're on the brink of bankruptcy, and they're trying to sell all these different things, right? And so Steve Jobs comes in. He takes an expo marker. He finds a marker board in the Apple, headquarters or whatever. He's got all these executives, all these white collar dudes around him. And he draws a 2x2 grid, right? So 4 squares. And he says, guys, look, we're going to do this. We're going to create 4 things: a professional desktop, a professional laptop, a consumer desktop, a consumer laptop. And he said, we are going to narrow down and we're going to focus on these 4 things. Everything else, we're cutting it out. We're saying no. Let's get great at these 4 things and we're going to turn this thing around. And what do you know? A year later, they're $300 million in profit. They're killing it. Why? Because Steve Jobs understood the power of no. He said no to all the other products they could be selling, all the keyboards and I don't know, all the other lines of desktops and whatnot. And I don't know what all they were selling back then. But my point is he learned to say no. And he got really intentional about what he was saying yes to. And that's important. He cut 70% of Apple's products. He got rid of people who worked in the company. That was an unfortunate thing, I'm sure. But he got the job done and he turned the ship around. And now look at Apple, right? You're probably listening to this podcast on an iPhone. And that was all made possible from the word no. So how do you actually say no? Just 2 things for you here. First off, you should not feel guilty about protecting your time and your energy. Okay? Know that. When somebody has a favor for you, or they have an opportunity or an offer, and you know in your heart of hearts, it does not align with what you want. It does not align with your time and your energy. Say no. It's okay. You don't have to ask for permission. You shouldn't feel guilty. The second thing is, when you're saying no to somebody, what I've learned is these three things right here, they work. Be kind, be respectful, but most importantly, be honest, right? Don't beat around the bush. Don't lie to people. Tell people what's going on, why you're saying no to this. Maybe it's as simple as like, hey, not now, maybe later. Maybe it's, hey, this doesn't really align with my goal right now in life. Maybe it's, hey, I can't give you all I got, so I'm going to say no. You can go find somebody else, or I can help you find somebody else, right? So that's how I have learned to say no. And another way I like to think about this is a chef. A chef, a good one at least, isn't going to dump all the ingredients into the pot and just expect a wonderful, amazing dish to come out, right? He's not. He's going to be very selective about what he puts into the dish. He's going to measure everything, and he's going to get very specific. And every other ingredient on the shelf or in the pantry, he's not going to use. He's not going to use, because he understands that in order to make this good dish and to make it really well and to make it edible and delicious, he can't say yes to every ingredient. That's a silly way of looking at it. But your life, my life, it needs the same exact care. I often think about Jesus and how he said no. Yes, Jesus said no, people. I know that's crazy to think about. But me as a Christian, I've often thought like, okay, well, shouldn't I be serving everybody? Like, shouldn't I always be saying yes to opportunities to serve everyone all the time? And on the surface, like, yeah, that seems like the right thing to do. But if you look at Jesus and you look at his life, it's important to understand that Jesus was fully God, but he was also fully human, right? He didn't say yes to everything. Think about Matthew 4. Jesus goes off into the desert to fast, to draw closer to God, and he's there for 40 days and 40 nights. And in the desert comes Satan, of course. Satan approaches Jesus and he says, hey, Jesus, you see that stone? I'll turn it into bread. I know you're hungry. I'll turn it to bread. What do you say? Jesus said, no, I'm not bowing down to you. I don't need food, right? And then Satan, he keeps going and he says, hey, I'll give you power. I'll give you a chance to prove yourself, Jesus. Just bow down and listen to me. And Jesus said no. He said no 3 times. Jesus was not driven by his need. He was driven by his mission. He was driven by his mission. And he was not going to let anything distract him from what's most important to him. And what's most important to him is you, and it's me. Jesus was on a mission, and I think it's a great model for us to live by as well. I also think about Jesus in solitude. Oftentimes he would leave his disciples, right? He would venture off and just have some alone time to go pray. And this wasn't because he hated his disciples. It's not because, I don't want to be around you guys. I need a break from you guys. It was because he knew what his mission was. That's powerful stuff if you really think about it. So this week's challenge is pretty simple. Okay, it's not going to be easy necessarily, but it's going to be simple and straightforward. I want you and I want myself to say no to one thing this week. Okay. Now, this could be something that's making you feel guilty or pressured. It might be something that's sucking away a lot of your time. This could be something that, it takes you off your track for your goal. But what I want you to do is say no and then watch what happens. Notice the slight change in how you feel. Okay. Notice how your heart feels more at ease, Notice how you have a little bit more clarity, okay? And then what I want you to do is tell me about it. Tell me what you said no to if you're comfortable with sharing. Send me an Instagram DM. Go to Facebook Messenger. Send me a message there. Text me if you have my number. I don't care. Call me. Tell me in person, whatever. But what I'd really like for you to do is to join us on our Facebook group, Gaining Ground. It's an exclusive Facebook group. I'm going to keep talking about this. I just want more people to join and to be amongst us like-minded people who are taking on these challenges and growing each week. So share with us, though. Send me a message about it. I'd love to know what you're saying no to this week. For me, it's probably going to be late nights. Believe it or not, it is 2:30 in the morning right now. And that's not good because I have a wife and I have a son, and they wake up at 7 or 8, and I'm lagging behind a little bit about 10. And, I know that's not great because I want to be able to help my wife with Benson and feed Benson his bottle in the morning and, change a diaper if needed and whatnot, and serve my family, right? Like that's important to me. And so I've gotten in this really bad habit recently of just staying up till like 2 or 3 in the mornings. Now I do work, but my work does not, it does not go above my family. And so that's what I'm going to be sacrificing this week. That's what I'm saying no to this week. So I'll leave you with these 3 things. Number 1, be careful with your time. It's a non-renewable resource. Number 2, if everything matters, then nothing matters. And number 3, I want you to save your yeses for the people and the things that matter and are most important in your life. This has been the Weekly Gains Podcast. My name is Clark Gaines, and I'll see you guys next Monday.